Hello, my card making friends. Welcome to the Harbor Town Card Kit Workshop. I'm Tricia at Club Scrap, and I'm so glad you've joined me. Before we even get started, I want to invite you to just make sure you've hit subscribe on our YouTube channel and hit like. That really helps my channel and increases awareness about what we offer here at Club Scrap. So thank you in advance for that. Let's go ahead and get started by grabbing just the papers that came in your kit. So I'm going to set aside the envelopes, the ribbons, and all the other embellishments. And before we get started with our trimming, I like to put the paper into the order that we'll be using it. It just is a little less confusing that way. So to begin, let's just take that paper stack and put it upright. I like to hold it in the crook of my arm here so I can access all the papers easily. And I want you to find the 2 sheets of the white plain included in your kit. And it's a nice, super smooth cover weight white. Next up, I want you to find 1 sheet of green, 1 red, 1 yellow, and 1 blue. So basically 1 of each color. And then we're gonna do that all again. 1 green, 1 red, 1 yellow, 1 blue. Okay, next up, I want you to grab both of the prints that came in your kit. So those are these. And I like it because no matter what way the print is oriented, the 45-degree angle of the art allows me to use it in any direction without having a problem with the orientation. So both of those go next. And then find a sheet of Cutaparts, the one that has the more white area here on the left, some houses, and then the striped border on the right. I'll put that face down, and then the last one has these longer sentiments here for those slimline cards. Put that face down, flip the whole thing back over to the plain white on top. And I like to keep the papers I'm going to trim on my left, and then I have my instructions on the right. Now, you might just prefer to use the instructions from a tablet or desktop computer or whatever. Either way is fine. This is how I like to situate myself. And I'm going to take the 2 sheets of white, and I'll take them one at a time, and I'm going to check the grain direction of the paper as we're known to do, because eventually these papers need to be folded, and I want to fold with the grain. So just by holding the center of the paper at the center of an edge, if I push in or wiggle it and compare to the neighboring edge, I can see the paper dips much more easily in this direction than it does in this direction. So when I place this paper in the trimmer, I want it to dip easily from left to right. And I'm going to repeat that for the second sheet. Oh, this is stiff. This is easy to push in, dipping left to right. And the picture in the diagram is that arrow that we're looking at, dipping, pointing left to right. So that's always your indicator. You can see that next we're going to be putting the paper in the trimmer where it dips easily top to bottom. So I hope that makes sense to you. And now we're going to cut both of these sheets at 8.5 inches. Now I'm making sure the paper is level at the top here. The blade is all the way up, and I'm pushing down on this clear bar. Then rotate that 8.5 by 12 and trim at 11 and 5.5. Okay, these all become card bases. I want you to set them aside in a separate pile to be scored. And then meanwhile, I have to point out that I have my accordion pocket file here to keep organized for the pieces for now that won't be scored will go into the pocket file. If you don't have this, don't let that stop you from taking the class though. Just maintain 3 separate piles, A, B, and C, and then the only difference is you'll be using more horizontal space. Now, I have to tell you, this is kind of weird, but this is all scrap. Now, this is a nice, smooth, white cardstock. This is a pretty large piece. I recommend saving it, and you can use it for card liners or to stamp on for the front of a card, something like that. And these I didn't use either. I'm going to put this all in pocket D for things I didn't use. And next up, I'm going to grab a sheet of this green. Check the direction of the grain. So it's going to bend most easily from top to bottom. And then 1 red is next in my pile. I'm going to grab that one too. Yep, it bends easily top to bottom. That's what I need based on my sketch, okay? Stack it neatly together. We'll trim both at the same time. And if you're new and you would rather just do it 1 sheet at a time as just in case, that's absolutely fine. Just go back and repeat the process. We're gonna make our first cut here at 11.5. So 11 plus 2 columns to the left. That's 11.5. Make sure you stabilize that paper. And this is nice heavy cardstock, so you have to make sure that you're, working quite firmly with the blade and with the support here. Then slide down to 8.5. So 8 plus 2 columns left. Stabilize again. Okay, now rotate, and we'll trim at 9 3/4 and 7. So you just made 2 slimline card bases that will fold in the correct direction of the grain. That's the whole point of this, is we want to make sure we're not folding, especially these long, like hot dog style folds, against the grain. I'll set that in my score pile and pick up the next strip that was laying on the top of your stack here. It's 1 red and 1 green, and we'll trim this one at 7 3/4. And we'll place this strip in pocket C, as in Charlie, and set aside these little, you have a couple of little scraps that fell. You can put those in D if you want. And then the next skinnier strip here, this one will trim at 7 1/4. All right, and this also goes in C, and I'll just show you that this will nest on top of this. So when we interchange all the colors, it's gonna fit nicely. And then more scraps for the D pocket if you like. Now this long strip is gonna become a mechanism for one of our cards, and it needs to be scored. I'm gonna put it in the pile with the other items to be scored. And then, believe it or not, this long skinny piece, I found a nice home for it on a card. So we wanna trim this at 7. Now it's a really skinny piece, and if I bring it up here, it's hard to see my measurement. So I'm gonna bring it down so the top edge of the paper is resting against the bottom edge of my inch line, and trim it at 7. And this goes in pocket C. And then we have a scrap for D if you want, or you can dispose of it as well. We're gonna repeat all of that with 2 more colors. So checking grain direction on the yellow, dipping top to bottom, and grain direction on the blue. This is much heavier paper. You're gonna notice it right away. It'll have profound resistance if you're trying to push against the grain. Now, I just want a quick mention, if I'm going too fast for you, and maybe you're brand new to this and you're like, slow down, I have to pause every 2 seconds, just go into your settings on your YouTube playback channel, hit playback speed, and change it to 0.75. It'll really, really slow things down. All right, here we go, trimming again, the blue and the yellow at 11.5, and then sliding to 8.5. Rotate and trim at 9 3/4 and 7. This is the piece that we set aside to be scored, our future card base. Then pick up the next pair of panels, just make sure you have the 2, and we will trim horizontally at 7 3/4. Pocket C. And you made some wee little scraps. Sometimes I like to save them just in case I want to, adorn the inside of my cards a little bit further, or, really anything. And then this next one we'll trim, this next pairing, at 7 1/4 for more nesting panels for card set C. We made some more little scrappies. This is the long strip that becomes a mechanism, so it needs to be scored. I'll put that aside. And then our narrow strip, once again, to trim at 7, and bringing it lower so I can see. And pocket C on the longer strip, and this is a scrap. I'll pop that in D. And now we're gonna do 4 more sheets of paper with a completely different cutting diagram, yet the grain direction has to go the same. So pushing it easy this way, dipping top to bottom. Yep, top to bottom here. And our first cut this time is at 6 1/4. So that's 6 plus 1 column left. Stabilize. All right, now rotate. And we're going to trim in a very large number, 11 3/4 and 9. All right, that creates 2 nice card bases for us to be scored. This next piece we'll trim at 5 1/2 and place this in pocket B, bravo. We have some scraps that we want to deal with. You can get rid of those. And then I'll grab this larger piece. Now we're gonna have some fun with this, so just be patient with me here and take it one slice at a time. Our first cut is at 8, 6, and 4. Now leave the 4-inch piece in there, and I want you to just rotate it so it's horizontal, okay? Then cut at 5 1/4. And place this in pocket A. You just made 2 nice panels and created a couple of scraps. Put those in D. This next little strip here, we're gonna trim horizontally at 5 1/4 again for pocket B, bravo. These are really little scraps. I could probably pitch those. The next little 2-inch strip, we'll trim at 3 1/2. And place that in pocket B, the largest piece you just made for B, bravo. All right, this next step is not in the written instructions here on step 3, but I'm gonna have you do it right now because your trimmer is handy. What I wanted to do with this piece is turn it into a mat for that nautical style tag that we have in here. So if you wanna grab the tag and just double check, but I'm gonna put this in my trimmer vertically, okay? And then I'm gonna trim it at a weird measurement, you're gonna love it, 1 3/8. Okay, so if that's uncomfortable for you, you can skip this altogether, it's okay. But 1 3/8 is halfway between 1 1/4 and 1 1/2. So I'm going to find that mid mark there and support this now with my index finger on the clear bar. There we go. Now we have this nicely shaped piece to nest with our nautical tag and make it really pop off the page. And we're going to place this in pocket C. You made a little tiny scrap again. This last piece on your table should be going in pocket B, bravo. We get to do all of that one more time, so don't panic, I'll walk you through. We're gonna check our grain direction on the yellow, dipping top to bottom, and then checking it on the blue, top to bottom. Stack them up neatly, and go ahead, trim at 6 1/4. Rotate and trim at that big number, 11 3/4 and 9. 9 gives us that other card base. And we have this strip here that we'll trim at 5 1/2 so that we can place that in pocket B. We have a couple of scraps here, just little scraps. And pick up this larger sheet now, and we're gonna trim it all as nice even numbers. So we'll start out at 8, 6, and 4. Rotate the 4-inch piece, trim at 5 1/4. That gives us a nice card panel for set A, and a couple of little scraps. Very tolerable number of scraps, I guess, because they're small. The next small strip, we will trim this one also at 5 1/4 and place in pocket B, bravo. Made some scraps, so I'll just get rid of those. This one we'll trim at 3 1/2. All right, so this larger piece that was in your trimmer base, pocket B, bravo. Now the small piece, once again, let's go ahead and just do that quick cut. We're gonna place it vertically because remember we want it to fit our little tag. So if you wanna do a test run, you can. And that fun favorite measurement of yours now, 1 3/8, halfway between 1 1/4 and 1 1/2. Again, completely optional, okay? For pocket C. And then we have this pair of panels for B, bravo. Moving on to the print, just take one of them, make sure the other one's still here, and we'll trim at 10, 8, 6 1/4. Now bear with me. This next one, the measurement is not on the nearest quarter, it's 5 1/8. And the reason we had to do it at that kind of weird measurement is for this panel here that goes here. And it's because we divided something in half that gives us a number requiring this weird measurement, okay? So this is what's kind of got to happen if you're going to do a gatefold panel like this. The measurement, again, 5 1/8, which is halfway between the 5 and the 5 1/4. I dream of a world where all of my card making students just are fine and comfortable with trimming on the 1/8 measurement. I don't push it to 1/16 usually if I can help it. Okay, we're going to trim at 10 1/2. And that cut, if you want, and normally I don't have you do this, but this piece that just fell is actually a scrap. So let's get that out of the way so we don't even have to deal with it. And now follow along, quite a few cuts here to make those panels. 8 3/4, 7, 5 1/4, 3 1/2, 1 3/4. So basically we were moving down at a pace of 1 3/4 inches per cut. And we created 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 panels, all the same. That other one was a scrap, and we'll place these in pocket A for that gatefold card structure. Now this next piece, I want you to trim at 8 1/2. And the reason we're doing this is using it for the inside of a card in set C. And I'll get rid of that little scrap that fell. The next piece, we need to make 2 more panels for our gatefold cards. So this was mathematical joy for me to plan for you. Our first cut's at 10 1/4. And half of that is 5 1/8. So 5 plus halfway between the 5 and the 5 1/4 is 5 1/8. And we have 2 more panels for our final gatefold card. Going in pocket A. There's a little scrap that fell. He's cute. And then we have 2 more strips that should be 2 by 12. They're the same, of course. And we'll trim these at 7. The 7-inch pieces go in pocket C, Charlie. And the final 2 that fell go in B, Bravo. And we're on to our final print here. This time we'll trim at 11 1/2, 9 1/2, 7 1/2, and 3 3/4. All right, I'm gonna pick up the 2 larger pieces that fell. These should be the same width. We'll trim them at the same time at 11 and 5 1/2. All 4 of these panels, all the same, pocket B, Bravo. And then you have these 2 little guys that fell from the end. I'll pop those in D. The next 2 pieces should be the same width. Let's stack those and trim at 7. Both of them go, these larger ones, pocket C, Charlie, and the smaller ones, B, Bravo. And you do have this long strip that fell from the end. We could probably use that in card set C on the inside. Let's just do it. I'm just gonna be spontaneous and trim this at 8 1/2. And I'll place this in pocket C. Even though I just have it X'd out as a scrap, in my mind's eye, I can picture using it there, so that's what we'll do. Here we have arrived at our Cutaparts. So if you know what to do, just go ahead and get started. But for the rest of my newbies in the house, I just want to tell you there's a little love note here from us at Club Scrap to have you remove the paper from the outside of those corner cutting guides. That helps us start with this perfectly positioned on our trimmer so that we don't have the butterfly effect of maybe a slightly off cut kind of making its way down to all of the pieces. So this was the best solution I could come up with to make sure we start off on the right foot. Now that first cut, I like to look at the edge of my silver blade here. So if you're using this trimmer, that's what you're gonna see. But when the paper is at this size, you can't really see the blade at the bottom, the edge of the silver blade. So when I make my first cut, I make it shy of that line. Then I'll rotate the paper. This time, because I've made that first cut, I can see the blade at the top and bottom. And I'll slice it nicely. Rotating again. Rotating again. Now I can look at my 12 over here on this side, and I should be able to just trim. And then this last cut's gonna be a tiny little hair. If I look at my 12, and let me show you, this is what that little leftover piece looks like. And all of the strips I'm gonna throw in the garbage. And when I begin trimming this now, I'm gonna make sure that that stripe is on the right edge. That's gonna basically be a scrap. I'll trim this at 11.5. 10.25, 7.5, and 4.75. Rotate. So now you can trim these into equal parts. We'll cut at 9, 6, and 3. Gather all these pieces and place in pocket B, Bravo. And then this next strip we'll cut at 11, 8.25, 5.5, 2.75. So these are the card fronts for everything in set A. And there's a little lighthouse here that fell. He goes in C. And we'll pick up the next strip, same measurements and same placement. 11, 8.25, 5.5, 2.75. All of these larger squares, those are the insides for A, and a lighthouse for C. And we have this guy. First cut is going to be at 11, 10, 9, 8, 5.5, 2.75. All right, the houses all go in pocket C. Then you have these really little guys for C, and they are designed to, just I'll mention again, to fit onto your cute little nautical tag on the top of it. So that's C for all those little ones. Okay, and then, you know, this guy, I can probably just picture using this in set C. So, you know, spontaneously, I'm going to cut this at 8.5, even though the instructions aren't written. And let's place this big one in C, Charlie, and then we have a little scrap here. So if you're not watching the videos, you miss those kinds of fun things. Okay, this last cut apart, we have to do the same thing. Remove that outer perimeter by making, to start out, I'm going to do a generous cut. By generous, it just means not worrying too much about accuracy. I think I need to go generous on this cut too. Here we go. Now I can see what I'm doing. All right, and then rotate. Rotate again. This time I can cut at 12 and rotate one more time. Now I have a nice 12 by 12 and my little scraps to throw away. To begin, let's position this in our trimmer base so that these wider pieces are on the left. And we've got to just make sure we don't cut here, because if we do, we're going to cut through those tags. Our first cut is at 7. Then rotate and trim at 10, 8, 6, 4, and one more little cut at 3.25. Rotate the piece in your trimmer. Let's cut these into sections. First cut, 5.25, 3.5, 1.75. Okay, let's grab all of these rectangles for pocket B, Bravo. And then we have this set of lighthouses. All of these go in C. In addition, you have these 4 long narrow panels for C, and this final strip here, we'll place it in with the not your age on the right. We'll go 10.25, 8.5, 6.75, 5, 2.5. Rotate the 2.5 and trim at 2.5. Both of these go in pocket A, And then same with the next strip, 2.5, pocket A. Now on these bad boys, you can do this now or later, but one option would be to just angle it into the trimmer so that you can see where the blade kind of lines up with the art, and turn these pieces into tags. And I recommend doing this one tag at a time. You can also do this with scissors. You can do it with a craft knife and cutting mat. And full confession, I typically, if I'm designing the card for, you know, for this, when I'm going to take photographs of it and use it as a sample, I actually use my craft knife and cutting mat because it's the most accurate, but it's a little bit more time consuming. So it's kind of up to you how, you know, specific you want to get. These look really nice and I just eyeballed it. And all of these going in pocket B, bravo. And you've got your little triangular scraps, and that's it. That's all the trimming required for all 12 cards, which is pretty amazing. So I'm gonna lock my blade here, support my accordion pocket file, get rid of the trimmer, and now it's time to grab my score pal. Now, do you remember we had this big pile set aside? This is what mine looks like. Yours probably looks really similar. And I'm gonna tackle this pile kind of in the order it's sitting in right now. So that should make the most sense for you. The instructions to score are written in kind of as you go, but I find it's most efficient just to keep my trimmer out and then go back and get my score pal out, okay? So the very first thing you're gonna find, in my case, if you followed along, there will be a 6 1/4 by 9 inch card base. And I'm gonna place it horizontally into the score pal. Now I like to use a round tip metal stylus to score rather than the plastic bone folder that comes in the score pal. And I'm gonna score this at 4.5. That's right down the middle, okay? Because it's a 9 inch piece. And then I'll bring in the yellow and do this again. Notice I'm holding this like a pencil and pressing and bringing it toward me. 4.5. It takes a little bit of pressure to get a nice score line on these coverweight papers. So the heavier the paper, the more pressure required. And if you're, you know, scoring a text weight paper, you want to be careful not to tear the paper. All right, so I'm going to take all 4 of these card bases and place them in pocket B and move on to this long strip. Now this requires quite a few score lines and some flipping. So come along with me. We're going to score at 3, 6, and 9. So 3, it's pretty easy. 6 and 9. Then I want you to take the paper and flip it from the bottom to the top and score it 4.5 and 10.5. All right. We're going to repeat that with the yellow. So 3, 6, and 9. 3, 6, 9. Flip. And 4.5, 10.5. Now dig down just a little bit. You're going to find 2 more just like it. Let's go right to those. 3, 6, 9. 3, 6, 9. Flip. 4.5, 10.5. One last time. 3, 6, 9. Flip. 4.5, 10.5. We have these cool strips that are going to grow up to become butterfly hinges. How cool is that? Now let's take these next pieces. They're 7 by 8.5, so they're not quite square, right? And we want them to go into the score pal vertically. The number I want you to see up here is 7. Score at 3.5, so right down the middle. We also planned ahead to make sure that we were scoring in the same direction as the grain. So these cards are going to sit and fold very, very nicely for us. 3.5. Okay. Pocket C, Charlie. Now we have our gatefold cards. This is such a common measurement that the people who made the score pal actually put a circle at our scoring number. So if you're using this brand, you're going to find a circle at 2 1/8. Remember I told you about those weird measurements? And 6 3/8. All right, that's gonna bring it right down the middle for us, all right? When those ends will meet at the middle. 2 1/8, 6 3/8. And we're also scoring with the grain. 2 1/8, 6 3/8, 2 1/8, 6 3/8. And this goes in pocket A. And now we can start making our cards. To begin, let's take everything out of pocket A. There we go, confirmed, it's empty. And we've got all kinds of fun pieces here to work with. What I usually like to do is sort things out by size and then deal everything out onto the card bases so that we can be organized. Now the plan is we're gonna make one of these cards together. The remaining 3 go together exactly the same way. So let's distribute our card bases. So 1 white panel to each pile. Then let's distribute, let's see. Let's go ahead and distribute these paper hinges. We're gonna go yellow with this one. And then green. Red. And blue. Let's add a panel to each of these cards. So we'll choose red, blue, green, and yellow. You can see we're distributing lots of color here. Isn't that nice? And now we have all these wonderful panels, 2 to each card. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Then we have these sentiments here. So some are the solid ones. The solid blue go on the outside. So the sun is up, the sky is blue, this one and this one. And then row, row, row your boat, those bottom 2. Obviously, it's beautiful and so are you. Goes with these 2, and merrily, 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 life is but a dream. Go on the bottom. Then we have thinking of you, my friend, with the top, and then the happy birthday on those bottom 2 cards. As I mentioned, we're going to be making just one of them together so that you know how it works. For the other 3, I'm going to take the smallest size envelope that I have in the ones that we included in your kit. And I'm going to pick up this pile here with the blue strip, and I'm going to slide everything into an envelope like this. Then I'll grab my next envelope and take everything with the red strip and pile it in. Everything with the green strip, pile that in, and there you have it, ready to go with this lovely card. Let's make our hinge first. Now, a common mistake I see a lot of crafters make, I can't believe even how many professional, people who make videos who have 100,000 followers, they don't score correctly. We did that flip, if you remember. We did score, 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 flip, score, score. And that helps us guide the way of every fold we're about to make. So do you see that this right here is a raised area? This is indented. The raised area of the score is what goes on the inside of the fold. So I'm just going to go ahead and fold this to bury that score line inside the fold. Now if I turn this over here, this is raised, so it needs to be buried. And then here, if I flip it again, the raised surface here goes under. This raised surface goes under, and this raised surface goes in. Now, we made a really weird looking fold set, didn't we? But this, as I mentioned before, is going to become a butterfly hinge. So basically what will happen is, if we just let it do its thing as we guided it along the way, we're going to have this little thing that we can use as a hinge. Now, in the original concept of this card, the person who created it used separate pieces for all of this. 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces. But I realized I could do all of that with just one piece of paper cleverly folded. Now we need our bookbinding glue, and I like to store mine in a tape dispenser. This is my fancy storage, and I've seen stuff you can pay a lot of money for to store your glue, but this works great. The glue is in the tip of the needle tip applicator, and I don't really have to worry about it drying out unless I forget to seal it. And then I use a hat pin to take care of it. So I'm going to adhere both of these pieces to this larger piece. You can apply glue either to this or to these. I'm just going to bring that down. And then I'm going to apply glue to these pieces and glue this down. You could use your regular glue too. I'm going to try to make sure it's really nice and even And here I have my cute little butterfly hinge. Maybe give that a little swipe with the bone folder to make sure all of those folds are nicely creased. And the next step, I'm gonna grab some of this blue taffeta, and I'm going to just trim a section, couple inches, and checking the grain, I will make a little loop with it and make sure the ends are uneven, and making sure that the seam, this is gonna be the top and bottom of the hinge. Okay, not this way, but this way. And I'm gonna make sure this little loop extends around the center here. And since my tape is handy, I'll just tape this loop down and I'll put my glue back. Okay, now we have this guy. The sun is up, the sky is blue. So let's adhere this to the front. Now I thought about the best way to put the rest of this expression. It's beautiful and so are you. I decided that the way that made the most sense was to have this sentiment on the inside of the card and thinking of you, my friend, on the back, just in case the recipient doesn't flip it over. I mean, they will, and this even says slide so that they'll know what to do when they receive the card. But I'm gonna put the final sentiment on the back so the first thing they see is it's beautiful and so are you. If you don't like it that way, you can swap it out. This will fit as well. Okay, now we have our cute little card base. And here are the score lines that are facing, this is the bump. So when I make this fold, I'm gonna try to make it so it's really, this panel is as short as it can be considering the fold. And I'm gonna do the same thing here. When I go around here, I'm just gonna make sure I fold kind of on the outside of the score line, because what I want ultimately is a little gap between these two folds coming together at the middle. Do you see there's a little gap in there? You'll see it better once we get our panel on the inside. So let's place that. And sometimes you have to discover why I'm doing what I'm doing by making the card, okay? Then we have these two cute little decorative panels. I'm gonna add some adhesive to these. 1, 2, 3. If you're not using something like this yet in your card making, but you're a prolific card maker, I highly recommend exploring using an ATG rather than those little tape runners. There is a little bit of a learning curve with getting something like this, and it's maybe not for everyone, but it's probably the most economical piece you can use. Now, do you see you can see this gap here? That's what we want, because this is a slider that has to come on and off of that. I'll put the sentiment on the inside of the card as well. And you know, at this point you could reach into pocket D and see if there's something else you want to add to this, colors, you know, scraps, whatever. I'm just going to leave this plain, and the card's basically done. So here is our little hinge. So one of these V's will go on one side of the flap and then the other on the other side. So the first time you slide it on can be a little bit more of a challenge. So just hook this here and hook this here. Oh my gosh, that worked perfect. And with these, you might want to just give it another crease, because it's going to push the gatefold flap, so the card out a little bit further when you do that. But we really paved the way nicely. And look at that. It slides on and off. It's so cute, isn't it? I love it. The sun is up, the sky is blue, it's beautiful, and so are you. Thinking of you, my friend. Now, before we go away, I'm going to do the very, very last thing, and that is with these adorable water droplets, okay? Now, I dumped these all out, but this time I'm just gonna do like a few. Oh, look at that, I got 3 different sizes. How clever is that? If you happen to have a tweezers or some sort of other grabber, works really nice, but this is why I do this last. I'm just gonna add some random spots and then I'll carefully pick one up and add it to the little piece of adhesive that I added. So notice I'm adding the adhesive to the panel rather than to the little dot. And that's why I'm doing this last, because I really want to set this aside and let it completely dry before I start hanging around with it too much, and you know, keep it away from the cat. And you can see how the glue does dry clear, and these aren't going anywhere, and it looks so cute. And then the other one, row, row, row your boat. So again, all you do is just slide that off and you've got your cute little sentiment inside. So much fun. And then for display, you know, this can sit up and this will stand as well. Very, very cute, okay? I know you can't see from that angle, but you get the idea. That is card set A, congratulations. This is card set B, so we will empty the pocket labeled B. Lots of fun things in here. And as I mentioned before, I do like to sort things out a little bit by size so that I can make sense of all these pieces easily. There are quite a few sizes and pieces, but you'll figure it out. It's not too bad. Okay. We'll start out with our card bases. Let's go blue, red, green, and yellow. Remember, my daughter used to say lello. All right, now our largest panels next, we'll use green, blue, yellow, and red. Again, distributing more colors. Then we have the print. Okay, there's the larger set of printed panels that are rectangles. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we have some narrow strips and some wider strips. Take the widest of the remaining, yellow. Again, distributing more of the color to each card. Green, red, and blue. In your kit, you do have a series of 4 small white envelopes. 1, 2, 3, 4. We have some longer and shorter panels. Let's go red, yellow, blue, and green, and match the color on the narrower one, or on the smaller one. Red, yellow, blue, green. Now we're getting onto some of the cut-apart sentiments. Let's see. Let's take these smaller rectangular sentiments. These are going to fit on the smaller panel and be on the outside of the envelope. So a true friend remembers your birthday, and a true friend remembers your birthday. Do you know what really makes me smile? And then both of those there. Then we have the inside to kind of the joke, I guess, the tag. A true friend remembers your birthday and not your age. And I alternated so that this was blue and this was white. This is not your age. And then the do you know what really makes me smile goes with facial muscles. And then on the inside of each card, I decided to take what would have been a scrap. So it's this narrow printed panel, deal those out. And then we have wishing you a happy day, and so happy to celebrate you today. From your envelope pile, I'm going to grab the medium-sized ones, or the smallest ones that are remaining, and that should fit your card bases for 3 of these, and we'll make the first one together. We'll do the blue one together. And when I sort these for you, I'm kind of following along in the instructions, the pictures of the cards in the instructions to kind of keep it, you know, as consistent as I can. And then this, of course, will be for the card we'll make together. So following our rules, let's take a look at this score line and see that it's raised. So I'm going to bury the raised part, bury the bump of the score line, and give it a nice crease. And next up, we can take our printed panel here, and I will nest this. It's about 1/8 of an inch reveal on all sides. It's pretty easy to eyeball. And then we can add adhesive to this. And I'm going to place it on the card base. This time I'm going to use my ruler. And I'm not looking at measurements, I'm just looking at cubes. I'm placing the ruler 2 cubes from the edge of the card, and then the same 2 cubes from the top and bottom. And that way I know this is centered on the card 1/4 of an inch from the edge. Alrighty, then we have our fun little tag and envelope situation. I'll set aside the things for the inside of the card. So this wider panel, I'm just gonna go ahead and add this to the card as well. And I'm gonna do this about 1/4 of an inch from the edge of the printed panel. So I have some of that print peeking through. Covers quite a bit of it, but you know, so what? Here I have my fun tag. Now I'm gonna nest the tag. Make sure you've removed the corners of the tag before you nest it. And center this onto the red panel. And at this point you can use scissors or craft knife or trimmer. I'll use scissors to remove the triangles to complete the tag shape. And then I will take some of this cotton ribbon and trim a 2-inch length and position it kind of low. I don't want a lot of ribbon extending from the top just because of the height of the card. And there's a lot of room there for you to staple. This is gonna go inside the envelope, and the way I like to do this is basically the flap is on the back and the dip is in the front. Okay, this eagle is sticking out there, it's so cute. Then I'll take this sentiment and nest it onto the panel that fits. And of course, this is designed to fit on the outside of the envelope, giving it a nice finished look. Finally, you can add your adhesive to the back of the envelope, or in this case, the front, and center it within this space. And I'm looking left, right, and bottom, matching the reveal. It's about 1/8 of an inch. Opening up, I'll add the print to the upper left with about, you know, 1/4 of an inch-ish from the edge and the fold. And then this I'll do in the lower with the same distance away. Wishing you a happy day. I mean, seriously, how easy was that? Oh my goodness. That can go in your envelope, it's ready to go, and all the rest come together the same way. What I did add, that I won't add now, is more of those cute little things. In fact, I added all of them at once. When I was finished with all of the cards, I just went to town and added them to everything. I just think those are so cute. I love them. Okay, that's set B. Let's go ahead and empty pocket C. So here we are with all of these goodies in there. And again, the recommendation would be to sort into piles of like items. It might be a little bit of a disorganized pocket, you know, and you can't just make sense of all that chaos. Less willy-nilly, you know, more organized is good. Yeah, everything was kind of in there in a weird order. Got my sentiments. I got these other random strips that I trimmed. A bunch of lighthouses. Oh, and these little pieces. Now, if you're just tuning in to set C, I trimmed that, it's going to be a rectangle. I trimmed it vertically at 1 3/8. Okay, just so that you know, if you didn't do the instructions with me, just go ahead and grab your trimmer and find the little rectangles that are 2 by 2 1/4 and trim them vertically at 1 3/8. Or you can skip that whole thing and just get rid of these guys. Okay, and I'm grabbing those 4 craft tags. I need those. All right, time to deal everything going on with this particular card set. We'll begin with yellow, and then green, red, and blue. Nice and easy. Oh, I just love these beautiful primary colors. Aren't they just in agreement so nicely? Okay, then green. Green is next. Blue, yellow, red. Those are the largest of the strips. We'll go blue, red, green, yellow. Now you should find a larger print that was going to nest right into this on each one. 1, 2, 3, 4. You will also find a narrow 1/2 inch strip. That's going to incorporate the 4th color, the one that's missing. So here we go. Red, yellow, blue, green. We have every color represented here now. Next up, we're going to go back to the color. This is with that piece we trimmed. That's 2 1/4 by 1 1/8. We're gonna match the color of the base of the card. So yellow, green, kind of starting over again from the beginning, red and blue, and give each one a tag. 1, 2, 3, 4. How about some sentiments? With heartfelt sympathy on these two, and oh happy day. So big contrast. I did go with the sympathy card. I find I'm needing them a lot lately for some unfortunate reason, and I think this would be a nice masculine sympathy card, even though the colors are cheerful, and there's nothing wrong with using cheerful colors on a sympathy card. I had the need for them, and I assume or suspect you might as well. Now we have these other little images. Let's get these distributed. I'm gonna grab scissors and just separate out these lighthouses. Okay, so this red lighthouse here, there's a larger blue lighthouse I used on this one, and then the other two on these. Then we have the big red house, the other larger red lighthouse, the big blue house, and the green house. On the yellow card, I have the wishing you comfort and peace to face the days ahead. On this green one, let's add the green strip that I cut. That's going to be nice. And then adding wishing you comfort and peace. On this red card base, let's add our stripe and the blue piece, you're far too special. And on the last one, we'll add the wider strip with you're far too special. Now you have one set of envelopes remaining. I'll go through our routine of sliding everything in so it's ready to go. And you don't have to wait, to do one of each card before you do the rest. I just, like to keep you organized, keep myself organized. Perhaps you could take yourself this far with the process before you go to a crop, for example. And maybe just if you're subscribed to the club, you're getting the kits every month, you go this far, and then when you go to your crop, you are the most prolific card maker in the room and the envy of all of your friends. Okay, let's go through the assembly steps. Once again, looking for the bump of the score line going on the inside of the fold. Bone folder. There we go, nice crease. Now before I do any nesting here, I'm gonna quick add this strip to this card. Now, one of the things is the ATG adhesive is kind of the same width as that. So what I like to do is use bookbinding glue. I'll just add it to this strip here. And I'm gonna use my ruler to stay level. I'm 2 cubes up from the bottom edge. I'll rest the strip against my ruler. That way I know it's not going uphill or downhill, which is a chronic problem of mine. Then we have a plentiful amount of this gorgeous yellow satin ribbon. I'm going to trim a length slightly wider than the panel and grab 2 pieces of tape from my handy dispenser and bring this around to the back. Secure. And then wrap it around and just make sure that you're not tugging or pulling, that this is nice and flat before you tape it. Okay, now this can go onto the blue panel. Got lots of wonderful nesting happening with this card. So pretty. The next one, the blue going onto the green, that's a 1/4 inch margin. So I am going to use my ruler again and go 1/4 inch from the bottom and from the left and the right. Nice and level. This can go onto the folded card base. I'm gonna need my bigger ruler though, the 3x14, because this is a slimline card. It's larger than the ruler. And I think I need a 3/8 inch margin here. So it doesn't really matter the measurement, just that you're 3 cubes from the edge, and then 1, 2, 3. Beautiful. It's looking good already, isn't it? So easy. Now here we have this tag situation. I'm gonna poke the hole out of the tag and trim a little piece of this yellow. I should do it at a sharp angle so that I can get it onto the tag easily, and I'm going to make a little loop like that, just sticking out like that. And on the back, I'll tape it down. Cute, right? Then I can nest this onto the yellow that I've prepared. Again, this is 2 1/4 by 1 3/8. I have a small sentiment that with heartfelt sympathy, you can add it with your bookbinding glue or your regular adhesive, whatever you prefer. And notice I have the bow to the right here. Now I'm gonna add, I have this roll of glue line here, and they make 1-inch lines, or they also make this continuous one. I ran out of the 1-inch, which I really like those. I'm gonna add a little, oops, make sure it's facing the right way, a little glue line right over the top of that hole there. Hope you can see that. Meanwhile, I'm gonna take some of this, more of this yellow ribbon, and I'm gonna make a small knot, like so, and trim it. It's so sweet, isn't it? Oh, I love that. And that's gonna go right here. My favorite little trick. It's 2 pieces of ribbon that looks like I did something super complicated and clever, but I didn't. Then to give this a little height, my last little trick is going to be to cut a couple of these circles in half. I'm gonna add foam adhesive circles to the back of this piece here. Remove the backing by the tab, which is so convenient. I love that. And add this. I'm gonna have it going into the green a little bit, and you see that this loop of ribbon is level with the ribbon on the strip. Love that balance. Now, with scissors I normally use for paper, I have one for fabric, one for paper, I'm going to trim around this house, but do you see what I'm doing? I'm gonna give it a little bit of a glow here and trim about 1/8 of an inch from the edge of the image. And I like that because it's less detail that has to be trimmed, and it kind of looks like a little sticker. And then you see that took like all of 30 seconds. I don't know how long it actually took, but I'm gonna do the same with this cute little lighthouse. Just a real rough cut, leaving about 1/8 of an inch of margin. Cute. Okay, the house, I'm gonna add behind the ribbon, kind of with the chimney sticking out past the green. And then the lighthouse I'm gonna add in front of the ribbon. I might have done this with foam adhesive, but that works too. How sweet is this? Then you can go through and add a few of those little water droplets. For the inside, we can put adhesive on the sentiment, and our margin here is 3/4 of an inch. 1, 2, 3/4 of an inch will have you centered. Love that. So pretty. There you go. There is your card set C. And the other flavors, yes, I did use foam adhesive on that. I love that. And then there's your little crystals, your little bow. This one I used the red ribbon because the strip was yellow and I wanted some contrast. I had plenty of ribbon to go around. Here I have the red one with the little strip there. So sweet. And our final blue card, the strip running across, and the sentiment. Oh, I just love these darling cards. They're going to be perfect for anyone on your list. If you liked the Harbor Town collection, we do have a page kit as well. And so go check that out. You can make 8 beautiful 12 by 12 embellished pages. I know a lot of you bundle your memberships and get the card kit and the page kit. We'd love to have you do that. If you haven't already, make sure you hit like, leave me a comment, maybe about something you learned, or if you're new, I'd love to hear from you. Thanks again for joining me today, and I look forward to seeing you in another card workshop soon.